The stars burned red in the distance as Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. The massive Dreadnought hummed with power, its engines ready for whatever came next. Captain, incoming transmission from Admiral Sullivan. Communications Officer Ben Parker announced from his station. Jake nodded. Put her through. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Kate Sullivan's tired face. Behind her, Jake could see the chaos of the command center on Earth's orbital station. People rushed back and forth carrying reports and shouting orders. "Jake, I'm not going to sugarcoat this," Sullivan began. "The Void Collective broke through. Our lines at Proxima. They destroyed the entire Third Fleet in less than an hour." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Third Fleet had been one of humanity's strongest forces, with over 200 ships. If the enemy could destroy them so easily, what chance did anyone have? "How many survivors?" Jake asked. 17 ships made it out, Sullivan replied. "The rest? Gone." Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner looked up from his tactical station. His young face was pale, but his voice stayed steady. "Admiral, what are our orders?" Sullivan's expression grew even more grim. "All remaining human vessels are to fall back to the Sol system immediately. We're pulling everything back for Earth's final defense." Jake studied the star charts on his screen. The Defiance was positioned near the Kepler Junction, a critical hyperspace route that led directly to Earth. If they abandoned their position, the enemy would have a clear path to humanity's homeworld. "Admiral, if we retreat now, how long before the collective reaches Earth?" "Our best estimates say 3 days, maybe 4 if we're lucky. And if they use the Kepler route," Sullivan paused. 12 hours maximum. Chief Engineer Lisa Grant spoke, up from her station. "Captain, we have a problem. I've been running diagnostics on our quantum drive and something's wrong. The hyperspace motivator has been damaged." Jake turned to face her. "Damaged how?" "It looks like sabotage, sir. Someone knew exactly what components to target. We can't jump to hyperspace." The bridge fell silent. Without their quantum drive, the Defiance was trapped. They couldn't retreat even if they wanted to. Navigation Officer Ryan Clark checked his instruments. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching from the edge of the system. It's them." Jake looked at the tactical display. Dozens of red dots appeared on the screen, growing larger by the second. The Void Collective had found them. "How many ships?" Jake asked. Alex Turner worked at his console, his fingers flying over the controls. "The initial count shows 30 destroyer-class vessels, sir. They're big ones." Jake did the math in his head. 30 enemy ships against 1 human dreadnought. The odds were impossible. Any sane commander would try to find a way to escape, even if it meant abandoning the ship. But Jake Morrison wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. "Ben, open a channel to Admiral Sullivan," Jake ordered. "Channel open, sir." "Admiral, the Defiance cannot retreat. Our quantum drive has been sabotaged, but we're still here and we're still fighting." Sullivan's eyes widened. "Jake, you can't take on 30 ships by yourself. It's suicide." "Maybe," Jake replied. "But if we run, the collective will reach Earth before you can prepare proper defenses. Every minute we hold them here gives you time to save humanity." Dr. Amy Foster, the ship's medical officer, stepped forward. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but her voice carried strength. "Captain, the crew should have a say in this decision. We all signed up to protect Earth." Jake looked around the bridge. Every face showed the same determination. These people knew what they were choosing, and they were choosing to fight. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "I'm going to be straight with you. We can't retreat, and we're facing impossible odds. The enemy has 30 ships to our 1. Anyone who wants to try to escape in the life pods has my permission to do so. No one will think less of you, Jake." Waited. Minutes passed. Not a single person left their station. Alex Turner smiled grimly. "Looks like you're stuck with us, Captain." "Then we fight," Jake declared. "Lisa, give me everything the engines can handle. I want full power to weapons and shields." "You've got it, Captain. But I should warn you, we're already running hot. If we push too hard, we might lose systems. Ryan, plot a course through that asteroid field. If we're going to fight 30 ships, we need every advantage we can get. The young navigation officer's hands moved quickly over his controls. Course. Plotted, sir. The asteroids will break up their formations, but it'll be dangerous for us too. That's the idea, Jake replied. We can handle dangerous. They're used to easy victories. The enemy ships came closer, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. Each Void Collective vessel was twice the size of a human destroyer, with weapons that could crack a planet's surface. Sir, incoming transmission from the enemy fleet, Ben Parker reported. Let's hear what they have to say. A harsh, mechanical voice filled the bridge. Human vessel, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Your species has been marked for harvesting. Resistance is pointless. Jake stepped forward, looking directly at the main screen. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Defiance. I have a message for your fleet commander. Speak, human. Jake's voice carried throughout the ship, reaching every crew member at their stations. You want our ship? You want our world? Then come and take them. But I promise you this. We won't make it easy. The communication ended with a burst of static. Alex Turner checked his weapons panel. All batteries charged and ready, Captain. Should I target their lead ship? Not yet, Jake replied. Let them come to us. We'll use the asteroids as cover and pick them apart piece by piece. The Defiance moved deeper into the asteroid field, its massive bulk sliding between the floating rocks like a predator waiting for prey. Behind them, the 30 enemy ships began to spread out, preparing for battle. Chief Petty Officer Maria Santos walked onto the bridge, her uniform stained with grease from the engine room. Captain, the crew wants you to know something. We're proud to serve with you. Whatever happens next, we'll give them a fight they'll never forget. Jake nodded, feeling the weight of command and the trust of his people. In a few minutes, the battle would begin. 30 ships against one. The smart money said the Defiance would be destroyed in the first exchange of fire. But Jake Morrison had never been one to bet on the smart money. He believed in his ship, his crew, and the stubborn human refusal to give up when things looked hopeless. All stations prepare for combat, Jake announced. It's time to show these aliens what humans are made of. The enemy ships began their attack run, and the USS Defiance powered up its weapons, ready to fight against impossible odds. The first enemy destroyer came around a massive asteroid, its dark hull gleaming in the starlight. Alex Turner didn't wait for orders. His fingers found the firing controls, and the Defiance's main guns roared to life. Brilliant blue energy beams cut through space, striking the enemy ship's shields. The alien vessel shuddered under the impact but kept coming. Its return fire lit up the Defiance's shields like fireworks. Direct hit on their forward shields, Alex reported. But they're still at full power. Captain Jake Morrison gripped his command chair as the ship shook from enemy fire. Ryan, take us behind that cluster of rocks. We need to break their line of sight. The Defiance moved like a dancer through the asteroid field, using the floating rocks as shields. Navigation Officer Ryan Clark had studied every asteroid, every piece of debris. He knew this field better than the aliens did. Captain, 3 more ships coming in from our port side, Alex warned. Jake could see them on the tactical display. 3 destroyers moving in formation, trying to trap the Defiance between them and the first attacker. Lisa, can you give me more speed? Jake called to the engineering station. Chief Engineer Lisa Grant's voice came back strained. I'm already pushing the engines past safety limits, Captain, but I can give you a few more seconds of boost power if you need it. Save it for when we really need it, Jake decided. Ryan, swing us around that big asteroid. Let's see if we can use it to our advantage. The massive space rock was the size of a small moon, with deep craters and jutting spikes of metal ore. Ryan guided the Defiance around its edge, using the asteroid's bulk to hide from 2 of the approaching enemies. Now! Jake shouted. The Defiance burst from behind the asteroid like a predator striking. Alex Turner had already locked onto the lead enemy ship. The Dreadnought's full battery of weapons fired at once. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and kinetic rounds all striking the same target. The alien destroyer's shields collapsed under the focused assault. Hull metal vaporized, and atmosphere vented into space. The ship spun out of control, crashing into a nearby asteroid. First kill confirmed, Alex announced with grim satisfaction But there was no time to celebrate. The other enemy ships were closing in, their weapons charging for another attack. The Defiance had destroyed one ship, but 29 remained. Communications Officer Ben Parker looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm picking up chatter from the enemy fleet. They seem surprised." "Surprised how?" Jake asked. "From what I can translate, they weren't expecting us to fight back this effectively. Most species they encounter either surrender or flee." Dr. Amy Foster moved between the wounded crew members who were being brought to the medical bay. The ship's corridors were filled with smoke from damaged systems, but the crew kept working. Every person had a job to do. "Medical teams to Section 7, Dr. Foster announced over the comm system. "We have injuries from the last hit." Chief Petty Officer Maria Santos led a damage control team through the ship's lower decks. Pipes had burst, electrical systems were sparking, and hull plates were cracked. But Santos and her people worked miracles with spare parts and determination. "We've got life support back online in Sections 4 through 6, she reported to the bridge. "But we're losing atmosphere in Section 12. "Seal it off," Jake ordered. "We can't afford to lose any more air." The Defiance continued its deadly dance through the asteroid field. Jake had realized something the enemy hadn't expected. Humans were better at fighting in chaotic environments. The aliens preferred open space battles with clear formations. The asteroids disrupted their tactics. "Ryan, take us through that narrow canyon between those two big rocks," Jake commanded. "Sir, that passage is barely wider than our ship. If we hit the walls, we won't hit them." "Do it." The massive Dreadnought squeezed through the rocky canyon, its hull just meters from the jagged stone walls. Behind them, 3 enemy ships tried to follow. The first one scraped its side against the canyon wall, tearing away armor plating. The second ship got stuck completely, blocking the path for the third. "Their formation is breaking up," Alex observed. "They're getting frustrated." Jake smiled grimly. "Good. Frustrated enemies make mistakes." The battle continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The Defiance used every trick Jake could think of. They hid behind asteroids, used debris as improvised weapons, and struck from unexpected angles. The crew worked together, like parts of a single organism. Weapons Officer Tony Hughes had managed to keep the ship's guns firing despite multiple hits to the weapons systems. He crawled through access tunnels to manually repair damaged circuits, his uniform torn and his face blackened with smoke. "Main battery back online," he reported. "But we're down to 60% power on the secondary guns." "That's 60%, more than we had 5 minutes ago," Jake replied. "Good work." The enemy was adapting too. Their ships began working in smaller groups, trying to surround the Defiance from multiple directions. Jake realized they couldn't keep playing hide-and-seek forever. "Captain, incoming priority transmission from Earth," Ben Parker announced. "Put it through." Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on the screen again. Behind her, Jake could see displays, showing the battle. Somehow they were watching the fight in real time. "Jake, the entire solar system is watching what you're doing out there. You've destroyed 4 enemy ships so far." Jake blinked in surprise. 4 ships? He'd lost count in the chaos of battle. "Admiral, we're holding them for now, but we're taking heavy damage." "How much time do you need?" "Every minute counts. The defense fleet is mobilizing, but we need at least 6 hours to get into proper position." 6 hours. Jake looked at the tactical display. 26 enemy ships remained, and the Defiance was already showing critical damage in multiple systems. "We'll buy you the time," Jake promised. The communication ended, and Jake turned back to his crew. They had heard every word. 6 hours, against impossible odds. Lieutenant Sarah Williams from the engineering department had been working on something in the lower decks. She climbed onto the bridge, her hands covered in some kind of alien energy residue. "Captain, I think I found something important," she said breathlessly. "I've been analyzing the wreckage from the ships we destroyed. Their shields have a weakness." "What kind of weakness?" "They cycle at a specific frequency. If we can time our shots just right, we can punch through their shields even when they're at full power." Alex Turner looked up from his weapons console. "How precise does the timing need to be?" Very precise. We'd have a window of maybe 2 seconds every 30 seconds. Jake considered this. It wasn't much, but it was something. In a battle like this, any advantage could make the difference between victory and death. Can you rig our weapons to fire automatically at the right intervals? Give me 10 minutes, Sarah replied. You've got 5, Jake said. Because here they come again. 8 enemy ships approached in a coordinated attack pattern. This time, they weren't trying to chase the Defiance through the asteroids. They were going to force a direct confrontation. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was tired, wounded, and facing impossible odds, but not one of them showed any sign of giving up. All right, people. We've got a new weapon to test and enemies to stop. Let's show them what the USS Defiance can do. The space around the Defiance exploded with enemy fire. 8 alien destroyers had given up trying to fight in the asteroid field. Instead, they formed a battle line and began a coordinated bombardment that lit up the darkness like a small sun. Captain, Jake Morrison felt the deck shake beneath his feet as blast after blast hammered the ship's shields. The lights flickered and sparks flew from damaged control panels. Shields down to 40%, Alex Turner reported, his voice tight with stress. We can't take much more of this. But Lieutenant Sarah Williams had worked her miracle. The ship's weapons now fired with perfect timing, striking the enemy ships during the brief moments when their shields cycled to minimum power. Firing, Alex announced. The Defiance's guns spoke with deadly precision. Instead of the usual bright flashes against enemy shields, the energy beams punched straight through, tearing into alien hull metal. 2 enemy destroyers exploded in brilliant fireballs. Direct hits on targets 3 and 7, Alex reported with satisfaction. Both ships destroyed. Jake allowed himself a moment of hope. Maybe they could actually survive this. That hope died when Communications Officer Ben Parker looked up from his station, his face white with shock. Captain, long-range sensors are picking up a massive enemy formation approaching. 3 capital ships and 60 support vessels. Jake stared at the tactical display. 60 ships. The battle group approaching was twice the size of the force they were already fighting. When it arrived, the Defiance would be facing nearly 90 enemy vessels. Time until they arrived, Jake asked. 27 minutes, Ryan Clark answered from his navigation station. Jake did the math. They had destroyed 6 enemy ships so far, leaving 24 from the original attack force. In less than half an hour, they would be outnumbered 90-1. The current battle was already pushing the Defiance beyond its limits. Jake could smell smoke in the air, hear the groaning of stressed metal in the ship's hull. His crew was exhausted, running on adrenaline and determination. Dr. Amy Foster's voice came over the comm system. Medical Beta Bridge, we have 37 wounded crew members, including 8 in critical condition. I need more medical supplies and personnel. Chief Petty Officer Maria Santos added her own report. Damage control to bridge. We've lost life support in sections 9 through 12. Hull breaches in sections 6 and 14 have been sealed, but we're losing atmosphere faster than we can replace it. Jake closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command. His people were dying, his ship was falling apart, and an impossible enemy force was bearing down on them. Captain, Ben Parker called out. Incoming transmission from the enemy fleet commander. Jake opened his eyes. Let's hear what they have to say. The main screen flickered, showing an alien figure unlike anything in human records. The being was tall and thin, with dark skin that seemed to absorb light. Its eyes were solid black, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. I am War Leader Kresh of the Void Collective. You have fought well, human, but your resistance ends. Now, surrender your vessel, and your crew will be given quick deaths. Jake stepped forward, looking directly at the alien commander. Around him, his bridge crew continued their work, but he could feel their attention on this moment. This is Captain Jake Morrison. I have a different proposal. Turn your ships around and leave human space. Do that, and we'll let you live. The alien's face showed something that might have been amusement. You face 90 ships with 1 damaged vessel. Your weapons are failing, your crew is dying, and you have no hope of victory. Why do you continue this pointless struggle? Jake looked around his bridge. Alex Turner was nursing a wounded arm, but still worked at his weapons console. Sarah Williams had burns on her hands from repairing damaged systems, but continued to modify their weapons. Ben Parker's uniform was torn and dirty, but his communications equipment worked perfectly. "Because we're human," Jake replied simply. "We don't know how to give up." "Then you will die for nothing." "Maybe. But we'll take as many of your ships with us as we can." The alien commander leaned forward. "You interest me, human. No species we have encountered has shown such determination." "Very well. We will give you a demonstration of true power. Watch as your ship dies." The transmission ended. Immediately, the remaining 24 enemy ships began a coordinated assault that made their previous attacks look gentle. The Defiance's shields collapsed within seconds, and enemy fire began striking the hull directly. "Shields gone," Alex reported. "Hull armor at 60% and falling." "Lisa, give me everything the engines have," Jake shouted to the engineering station. Chief Engineer Lisa Grant's voice came back over the comm, strained with effort. "Captain, the engines are already running at 120%. Any more and we risk a core breach." "Risk it." The Defiance suddenly accelerated, using its speed to avoid the worst of the enemy fire. But the ship was too big and the enemy too numerous. Blast after blast struck home, tearing away armor plating and destroying external systems. In the engineering section, Ensign Danny Kim worked desperately to reroute power from damaged systems. He was barely 19 years old, fresh from the academy, but he moved with the confidence of a veteran engineer. "I've got an idea," he announced over the comm. "Captain, what if we use our damaged sections as weapons?" "Explain," Jake ordered. "The sections that are already destroyed, we could vent their atmosphere explosively. If we time it right when enemy ships pass close to us, the debris and expanding gas could damage their ships." It was a desperate idea, but Jake was running out of options. Do it. The next enemy attack run brought 3 destroyers in close to the Defiance's hull. At exactly the right moment, Danny Kim triggered explosive decompression in the ship's damaged sections. Atmosphere rushed out of the Defiance in controlled bursts, carrying with it chunks of metal, broken equipment, and debris. The improvised weapons struck 2 of the attacking ships, tearing holes in their hulls and disrupting their weapon systems. "It worked," Danny reported with excitement. 2 enemy ships damaged, pulling back to repair. But the victory was temporary. More enemy ships were approaching, and the massive battle group was only 15 minutes away. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Carl Rogers climbed onto the bridge, his medical uniform stained with blood. "Captain, I need to report something strange. The crew members who were exposed to alien weapon energy are showing unusual brain activity." "What kind of activity?" "Their neural patterns are interfering with nearby electronics. It's like their minds are generating some kind of field." Jake filed this information away. Right now, he had more immediate concerns. "Tony, how are our weapons?" "Holding up?" he asked Weapons Officer Tony Hughes. "Main guns are down to 30% power, but I've rigged the secondary systems to overload on command. We can get one massive salvo out of them, but it'll burn out the weapon systems completely." Jake nodded. They were running out of time, ammunition, and options. The ship's AI, which the crew had nicknamed Liberty, spoke for the first time during the battle. "Captain, I have been analyzing enemy tactics and have a recommendation." "Let's hear it, Liberty." "The approaching battle group is expecting to find our wreckage. If we can create the illusion that the Defiance has been destroyed, they may approach carelessly. This could give us an opportunity for a surprise attack." It was risky, but Jake was out of conventional options. "How do we fake our own destruction?" "We would need to vent atmosphere, shut down all active systems, and drift as if we were a derelict. The crew would need to survive on emergency life support." Jake looked around his bridge. His people were wounded, exhausted, and facing certain death. But every face showed the same determination that had brought them this far. "All right, people. We're going to play dead and see if we can surprise them. It's a long shot, but it's the only shot we have." The massive enemy battle group was only 10 minutes away now. Whatever they were going to do, they had to do it fast. The USS Defiance drifted in the darkness, looking like nothing more than a dead hulk floating among the asteroids. Captain Jake Morrison lay on the bridge floor with his crew, breathing from emergency oxygen tanks and waiting. They had shut down everything: engines, weapons, shields, even basic life support. The only systems still running were the most essential ones, hidden deep in the ship's core and shielded from enemy sensors. "Remember, no one moves until I give the signal," Jake whispered into his emergency communicator. "They have to believe. We're all dead." Through the bridge windows, Jake could see the massive enemy battle group approaching. 3 capital ships, each one the size of a small city, accompanied by 60 smaller vessels. It was the largest alien force humanity had ever encountered. The lead capital ship was enormous, its dark hull covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. As it drew closer, Jake could see details he wished he couldn't. Hull markings that looked like the names of destroyed worlds, weapon systems designed to crack planets open. War Leader Kresh's voice echoed across space, transmitted to his fleet on an open channel that the Defiance could intercept. "The human vessel appears to be destroyed. However, scan for life signs. These creatures have proven more resourceful than expected." Jake held his breath. If their deception was discovered now, the Defiance would be destroyed before they could power up their weapons. Minutes passed like hours. The alien capital ships moved closer, their massive bulk blocking out the stars. Jake could feel the vibrations through the ship's hull as the enemy vessels passed nearby. "No life signs detected," an alien voice reported. "The ship is a derelict." Jake smiled grimly. The alien sensors couldn't detect the crew because Dr. Carl Rogers had discovered something remarkable during the battle. Human brain patterns, especially when focused by stress and determination, created a kind of natural interference field that disrupted alien technology. The crew of the Defiance had unknowingly been jamming enemy sensors with their own minds. "Begin harvesting operations," War Leader Kresh commanded. "Strip the human vessel for useful technology, then destroy it." This was exactly what Jake had hoped for. The aliens were coming close enough for a surprise attack. 2 enemy destroyers approached the Defiance, extending mechanical arms to begin cutting into the hull. Jake waited until they were practically touching his ship. "Now," he whispered. The Defiance came to life like a sleeping giant awakening. Engines roared to full power, weapon systems charged, and shields snapped into place around the hull. Alex Turner, lying on the floor just seconds before, rolled to his weapons console and fired everything the ship had. The 2 nearby enemy destroyers exploded instantly, caught completely off guard. "All power to engines," Jake shouted. "Take us straight at their command ship." The Defiance accelerated toward the massive enemy capital ship, its hull glowing from the heat of overstressed engines. The aliens, shocked by the resurrection of a ship they thought was dead, scrambled to respond. "They're trying to target us," Alex reported, "but their own ships are in the way. They can't fire without hitting each other." It was a brief advantage, but Jake intended to use every second of it. Communications Officer Ben Parker was already working at his station. "Captain, I'm detecting transmissions from all over human space. Word of our battle has spread." "What kind of transmissions?" "Other human ships, sir. They're refusing evacuation orders and moving to support us." Jake felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. He didn't want other crews to die in this impossible battle, but he also knew they needed all the help they could get. "How many ships?" 12 so far, maybe more on the way. The Defiance continued its charge toward the enemy command ship. Jake could see weapon ports opening along the massive vessel's hull, preparing to fire. "Lisa, can you give me more speed?" Jake called to Chief Engineer Lisa Grant. "Captain, the engines are already past critical. If we push any harder, we'll have a core breach. Then we'd better make this count. Tony, prepare all remaining weapons for a single massive salvo." Weapons Officer Tony Hughes was already working at his controls. "Everything's ready, Captain. This will use up all our remaining power, but it should punch a hole through anything." The enemy command ship opened fire with weapons that could destroy moons. The space around the Defiance filled with deadly energy, but the human Dreadnought kept coming. "Hull armor down to 20%, Maria Santos reported from damage control. "We're losing atmosphere on every deck." Dr. Amy Foster's voice came over the comm from the medical bay. "Medical bay to bridge. I have 60 wounded crew members and nowhere to put them. We need to end this battle soon. Jake gripped his command chair as the ship shook from enemy fire. They were almost close enough now, almost within range for their final attack. Sir, the other human ships are arriving, Ben Parker announced. The cruiser Valiant, the destroyer Phoenix, and 10 others. They're taking fire from the enemy fleet. Jake could see the new arrivals on his tactical display. Brave human crews coming to fight impossible odds because they had heard about the Defiance's stand. Signal them to spread out and use hit-and-run tactics, Jake ordered. Don't let the enemy mass their fire. The battle became a chaotic melee as human ships darted between the larger alien vessels, firing at critical systems, and then racing away before the enemy could respond. The aliens, used to easy victories against species that surrendered quickly, found themselves confused by human unpredictability. Lieutenant Sarah Williams climbed onto the bridge, her engineering uniform torn and burned. Captain, I've been monitoring the alien communications. Something strange is happening. What do you mean? They're not just angry about our resistance, they seem fascinated, like they've never encountered anything like us before. Jake filed this information away. Right. Now he was more concerned with the immediate problem of the massive enemy ship that filled his forward view screen. Range to target? He asked. 3,000 meters and closing. Ryan Clark answered from navigation. Tony, lock all weapons on their command center. We only get one shot at this. The Defiance closed the final distance to the enemy command ship. Jake could see individual weapon ports, sensor arrays, and hull details. The alien vessel was beautiful in a terrifying way, like a work of art designed for destruction. All weapons locked and ready, Tony Hughes reported. Jake looked around his bridge one more time. His crew was battered, wounded, and exhausted. Their ship was falling apart around them. They were outnumbered nearly 70-1, and they had no hope of survival, but they were still fighting. Fire, Jake commanded. Every weapon the Defiance had left fired at once. Plasma cannons, particle beams, kinetic rounds, and improvised explosive devices all struck the same point on the enemy command ship's hull. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a brilliant flash lit up space as the alien vessel's shields collapsed and its hull armor failed. The massive explosion that followed could be seen from Earth. War Leader Kresh's ship didn't just explode. It came apart like a flower blooming. In reverse, sections of hull spinning away in all directions. The alien commander's final transmission was cut off mid-word. Direct hit, Alex Turner reported with quiet satisfaction. Enemy command ship destroyed. But their victory came at a cost. The Defiance had used up the last of its power in that final attack. The ship went dark, drifting helplessly among the wreckage of its enemy. All systems offline, Lisa Grant reported. We're running on emergency power only. Jake looked out at the remaining enemy ships. There were still over 50 of them, and the Defiance was defenseless. But something unexpected was happening. The alien ships weren't attacking. They were waiting. Ben, are you getting any communications? Yes, sir, but they're not directed at us. The enemy ships are talking to each other. From what I can translate, they're confused about what to do next. Their command structure seems to have depended entirely on War Leader Kresh. Jake realized they had gained something more valuable than a military victory. They had shown the Void Collective something they had never seen before. A species that would rather die fighting than surrender, and that changed everything. The USS Defiance drifted in the darkness, powerless and surrounded by over 50 enemy ships. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the alien vessels through the main view screen. They hadn't fired a single shot since their command. Ship was destroyed. Any word from the enemy fleet? Jake asked Communications Officer Ben Parker. They're still talking among themselves, sir. From what I can translate, they're arguing about who should take command. It seems their whole command structure collapsed when we killed War Leader Kresh. Chief Engineer Lisa Grant worked frantically at her station, trying to restore basic power to the ship. Captain, I might be able to get life support back online in about 10 minutes, but weapons and engines are completely dead. Jake nodded. 10 minutes might as well be 10 years if the aliens decided to attack. Lieutenant Sarah Williams looked up from her engineering console. Sir, I'm reading something strange. Those human brain interference patterns Dr. Rogers discovered, they're getting stronger. Dr. Carl Rogers climbed onto the bridge, carrying a data tablet filled with medical readings. Captain, I need to show you something remarkable. The crew members who were exposed to alien weapon energy aren't just interfering with electronics anymore. They're starting to affect the alien ships directly. How is that possible? I don't fully understand it myself. But when our people focus their thoughts, their brain patterns seem to disrupt alien technology at a distance. It's like our minds are naturally incompatible with their systems. Jake considered this information. Is that why their sensors couldn't detect us when we were playing dead? Exactly. And the effect is getting stronger. The more stressed and determined the crew becomes, the more powerful the interference field. This explained a lot. No wonder the Void Collective had found humans so difficult to deal with. Their entire technological advantage was being neutralized by human brain patterns. Ben, are you still monitoring their communications? Yes, sir. And Captain, you need to hear this. They're talking about retreating. Jake felt a surge of hope. Retreating? Why? From what I can understand, they've never encountered a species like us. Most races either surrender immediately or flee. We keep fighting even when it's hopeless, and our minds interfere with their technology. They don't know how to handle us. Suddenly, the main screen activated. An alien face appeared. Not Kresh, but another Void Collective commander with the same dark skin and black eyes. Human vessel, this is Subleader Vorak. I have assumed command of this battle group. Jake stepped forward. This is Captain Morrison. Are you here to surrender? The alien's face showed what might have been surprise. Surrender? Your ship is powerless. You have no weapons, no shields, no engines. You cannot even maneuver. That's true, Jake admitted. But we're still here and we're still fighting. How can you fight without weapons? Jake smiled grimly. We'll figure something out, we always do. The alien commander stared at him for a long moment. You are unusual. We have conquered 700 species across this galaxy. None have behaved as you do. Maybe that's why you're having so much trouble with us. Indeed. Tell me, human, why do you continue to resist when victory is impossible? Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was wounded, exhausted, and stranded in a dead ship. But every face showed the same stubborn determination that had carried them this far. Because giving up isn't in our nature. We'd rather die fighting than live as slaves, even when death is certain. Especially then. Subleader Vorak was quiet for several minutes. When he spoke again, his voice had changed somehow. In 700 conquests, we have never encountered this quality. Most species value survival above all else. They surrender when faced with certain death. Then they've never understood what makes life worth living. The communication ended abruptly. Jake turned to Ben Parker. Are they still arguing among themselves? More than before, sir. It sounds like some of them want to retreat, but others want to continue the attack. Subleader Vorak seems to be having trouble maintaining control. Weapons Officer Tony Hughes looked up from his console. Captain, I've been thinking, if human brain patterns interfere with their technology, what would happen if we could amplify that effect? How do you mean? Well, we have over 400 crew members on this ship. If we could somehow focus all their brain patterns together, coordinate them somehow. Dr. Rogers nodded slowly. It might work. The interference field would be enormous, but we'd need some way to synchronize everyone's thoughts. What about the ship's communication system? Suggested Chief Petty Officer Maria Santos. If everyone could hear the same thing at the same time, their brain patterns might naturally synchronize. Jake felt a spark of hope. It was a desperate plan, but desperate times called for desperate measures. What would we need everyone to focus on? Something emotional, Dr. Rogers replied. Strong emotions create the most powerful brain patterns. Fear, anger, love, determination, any of those would work. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner spoke up from his tactical station. Sir, I have an idea. What if we had everyone think about why they're fighting? Not the tactical situation, but the personal reasons. Their families, their homes, their futures. Jake nodded. It might work. Ben, patch me through to the entire ship. You're connected, sir. Jake took a deep breath. All hands, this is the captain. I need everyone to listen carefully. Dr. Rogers has discovered that our human brain patterns interfere with alien technology. We're going to try to amplify that effect ship-wide. He paused, looking around the bridge at his crew. I want everyone to think about why we're here. Think about Earth. Think about your families, your friends, everyone you're trying to protect. Think about what it means to be human. The ship fell silent except for the hum of emergency life support. 400 crew members, scattered throughout. The Defiants closed their eyes and focused their thoughts on home. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Lights flickered on alien ships visible through the view screen. Several enemy vessels began drifting out of formation as their navigation systems failed. It's working, Sarah Williams reported excitedly. I'm reading massive electromagnetic interference throughout the enemy fleet. Their ships are losing power. But the effort was taking a toll on the human crew. Jake could see his people straining with the mental effort, sweat beading on their foreheads despite the ship's cool temperature. How long can we maintain this? Jake asked Dr. Rogers. Not long. This kind of focused mental effort is exhausting. Maybe 5 minutes maximum. Jake looked at the tactical display. The enemy ships were in chaos, but they weren't destroyed. As soon as the human crew stopped their mental assault, the aliens would regain control of their systems. Ben, open a channel to the alien fleet. Channel open, sir. Sub-Leader Vorak, this is Captain Morrison. As you can see, we don't need weapons to fight you. Our very presence disrupts your technology. The alien commander's voice came back strained and angry. What are you doing to our ships? We're being human. Our minds work differently than yours, and your technology can't handle that. Every human you encounter will have the same effect. This is impossible. You've been conquering species that think like you do. We don't. We're unpredictable, stubborn, and we don't know when to quit. That makes us dangerous to you in ways you never expected. Jake could see more human ships arriving on the edge of the system. Word of the battle had spread throughout human space, and volunteers were coming from everywhere. You have a choice, Vorak. You can stay here and fight us, knowing that every battle will be like this one, or you can leave human space and find easier prey. The alien fleet began to withdraw, their ships limping away with damaged systems. But Jake knew this wasn't over. It was just the beginning. As the Defiants drifted among the wreckage of the battle, Jake looked out at the stars and wondered what would happen next. Humanity had revealed a weakness in the Void Collective's seemingly unstoppable war machine, but they had also revealed their own greatest strength: the human refusal to surrender, even when surrender seemed like the only logical choice. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the fighting began, Jake believed humanity might actually have a chance to win. 3 hours after the battle, rescue ships arrived to find the USS Defiant still floating among the wreckage. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the recovery operations through the main view screen. His ship was a battered hulk, but it was still in one piece. Captain, the rescue ship Salvation is requesting permission to come alongside. Communications Officer Ben Parker reported. Granted, we could use some help right about now. The Salvation was one of the new human ships that had arrived too late for the battle. Its captain, a woman named Linda Hayes, contacted the Defiants directly. Captain Morrison, this is Captain Hayes. The entire human fleet has heard about what you've done here. You're heroes throughout human space. Jake felt uncomfortable with the praise. We were just doing our job, Captain. How many ships did we lose in the battle? 2 destroyers and a cruiser. But sir, you need to understand what your stand has accomplished. Every human ship in the galaxy is refusing evacuation orders now. They're all demanding to fight. This was exactly what Jake had hoped for and feared at the same time. He was glad humanity was showing backbone, but he didn't want other crews to die because of his example. Chief Engineer Lisa Grant managed to restore basic ship systems with help from the rescue vessels. Life support came back online throughout most of the ship, and the crew could finally breathe normally again. Dr. Amy Foster had set up a field hospital in the cargo bay to treat the wounded. 73 crew members had been injured during the battle, but remarkably, only 12 had been killed. Given the odds they had faced, it was almost miraculous. "Captain," Dr. Foster called over the comm, "I need to report something important. The crew members who are most effective at disrupting alien technology are showing some interesting changes." "What kind of changes?" "Their brain patterns have permanently altered. It's like the stress of the battle has awakened something in their minds. They can interfere with electronic systems just by concentrating." Jake made his way to the medical bay, where he found Ensign Danny Kim sitting on an examination table. The young engineer was staring intently at a broken data tablet. As Jake watched, the device suddenly flickered to life, its screen showing normal operation. "I don't understand how I'm doing it," Danny said, looking up at Jake. "I just think about the circuits working, and somehow they do." Dr. Carl Rogers pulled Jake aside. "We have 37 crew members showing similar abilities. It's like the battle awakened some kind of latent human potential. Is it dangerous?" "I don't think so. But Captain, if this is happening to our crew, it might be happening to humans throughout the galaxy. The war could change everything about our species." Jake left the medical bay with a lot to think about. The USS Defiance had won an impossible battle, but the implications of that victory were just beginning to become clear. Lieutenant Sarah Williams met him in the corridor, carrying an armload of data tablets and computer components. "Captain, I've been analyzing the wreckage from the alien ships we destroyed. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it has a fundamental weakness. Which is, it's designed for predictable behavior. Their whole technological base assumes that all intelligent species think in similar patterns. When they encounter minds like ours, their systems literally don't know how to process the information." Jake followed Sarah to the engineering section, where she had set up a makeshift laboratory. Pieces of alien technology were scattered across work tables, some of them still glowing with strange energy. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing to a device that looked like a combination of crystal and metal. "This is part of their navigation system. It works by predicting where the enemy will move next based on logical tactical analysis." "And humans aren't logical enough?" "Exactly. We make decisions based on emotion, instinct, and pure stubbornness. Their computers can't predict that." Jake picked up another piece of alien technology. As soon as his fingers touched the device, it began to spark and smoke. "I guess we really are incompatible with their systems." "Captain, there's more. I think I know why they've been able to conquer so many species." "Go on." "Every race they've defeated has surrendered once the odds became impossible. The Void Collective's entire military strategy is based on psychological warfare. They overwhelm the enemy with superior numbers, demonstrate their technological advantage, and wait for surrender." Jake understood. "But we don't surrender." "Right, and because we keep fighting, their whole strategic doctrine falls apart. They don't know how to handle an enemy that would rather die than give up." This explained the confusion Jake had seen in the alien fleet after their command ship was destroyed. The Void Collective had never encountered determined resistance before. Weapons Officer Tony Hughes appeared in the engineering section, carrying a small alien device. "Captain, you need to see this. It's some kind of communication device I pulled from the wreckage." Tony activated the device and alien voices filled the air. Sarah quickly translated the conversation. "It's a communication between Void Collective commanders in this sector," she said. "They're reporting the battle to their high command." The voices sounded strained and confused as they described the human resistance. Sarah continued translating. "They're saying that humans are unlike any species they've encountered. They're recommending a complete tactical review of operations in human space." Jake felt a spark of hope. If the aliens were questioning their tactics, it might give humanity time to prepare better defenses. "Is there more?" Sarah listened for several minutes, her expression growing more excited. "Captain, they're withdrawing 3 entire battle groups from the human frontier. They're pulling back to reassess the situation." This was better news than Jake had dared hope for. The stand of the Defiance had apparently convinced the Void Collective that humans would be much harder to conquer than expected. But Jake knew this reprieve wouldn't last forever. The aliens would adapt their tactics and return with new strategies designed specifically to counter human unpredictability. "How much time do you think we have?" Jake asked. "Hard to say. Maybe 6 months. Maybe a year, but Captain, there's something else. The communication mentions other species." "What about them?" "Some of the races the Void Collective conquered are beginning to rebel. Apparently word of our resistance is spreading throughout their empire. Other species are starting to fight back too." Jake felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. The human example was inspiring others to resist, but it was also likely to make the Void Collective even more determined to crush humanity. "We started something, didn't we?" Jake said. "Yes, sir. The question is, can we finish it?" Jake looked around the damaged engineering section, thinking about his crew and the impossible battle they had just survived. 12 people had died defending humanity's future. 73 others had been wounded. His ship was barely functional, but they had proven something important. They had shown that the Void Collective could be defeated. Not easily and not without cost, but it could be done. "Sarah, I want you to compile everything we've learned about alien technology and tactics. Make sure this information gets to every human ship in the fleet." "Already working on it, sir." "And Tony, I want you to work with our new volunteers to develop weapons that can exploit the aliens' technological weaknesses." "Yes, sir. What about you, Captain?" Jake looked out through the nearest porthole at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the Void Collective was regrouping and planning their next attack. Other human ships were taking their own stands against impossible odds. The future of humanity hung in the balance. "I'm going to make sure the Defiance is ready for the next battle, because you can bet there will be one." The ship's AI, Liberty, spoke from a nearby console. "Captain, if I may make an observation." "Go ahead, Liberty." "The crew's mental patterns during the battle created permanent changes in my programming. I believe I have developed what humans call hope." Jake smiled despite everything. "Welcome to the club, Liberty. Hope is what makes us human." 6 months after the battle at Kepler Junction, the USS Defiance hung in space above Earth's orbital shipyards. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the ship's corridors, inspecting the repairs and upgrades that had transformed his vessel from a battered hulk into something stronger than before. The ship looked different now. Human engineers had incorporated lessons learned from captured alien technology, but they had done it in a uniquely human way. Instead of copying alien designs, they had created hybrid systems that combined human creativity with alien efficiency. "Captain, the new weapon systems are online," reported Chief Engineer Lisa Grant. She had been promoted to full commander after her heroic work during the battle. "The neural interface weapons are ready for testing." Jake made his way to the bridge, where he found his crew preparing for their new mission. Many faces were familiar, but there were new ones too. The original crew of the Defiance had become celebrities throughout human space, and every young officer wanted to serve under Jake Morrison. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner looked up from his tactical station. He now wore the insignia of a full commander, having earned his promotion through combat. "Sir, Admiral Sullivan is requesting a final briefing before we depart." "Put her through." Admiral Kate Sullivan appeared on the main screen, looking older and more tired than Jake remembered. The past 6 months had been hard on everyone in the human military. "Jake, I'm not going to lie to you. This mission is even more dangerous than your last stand. Intelligence reports indicate the Void Collective is massing a fleet of over 500 ships for their next assault on human space." Jake nodded. "And our job is to stop them before they reach the outer colonies. Your job is to buy time for the evacuation fleets and gather intelligence on their new tactics. We know they have adapted their strategies to counter human unpredictability." The Defiance was no longer fighting alone. Jake commanded a small fleet of 12 ships, all crewed by volunteers who had requested to serve under him. They called themselves the Defiant Squadron, and their reputation had spread throughout the galaxy. "Admiral, what about the other species that have begun rebelling against the Void Collective?" Sullivan's expression brightened slightly. "That's been our one piece of good news. 17 species have declared independence from the Collective's empire. The aliens are fighting rebellions on multiple fronts now. Any chance of forming an alliance with them? We're working on it, but trust builds slowly. Most of these species spent decades as slaves. They're not sure they can trust anyone, even potential allies. After the briefing ended, Jake gathered his senior officers in the ship's conference room. The room had been completely rebuilt after the battle, with new systems designed to enhance the crew's natural ability to interfere with alien technology. Dr. Carl Rogers had been studying the phenomenon for months. Captain, we now have over 200 crew members who can consciously control their neural interference abilities. They can disrupt alien systems just by focusing their thoughts. Lieutenant Sarah Williams, now promoted to lieutenant commander, added her own report. The new weapons I've designed work by amplifying human brain patterns and projecting them as directed energy. It should allow us to disable entire enemy fleets without destroying them. Jake considered this. Why would we want to disable them instead of destroying them? Because disabled ships can be captured and studied. And Captain, there's something else. Some of the alien crew members we captured during the last battle have requested asylum with humanity. This was unexpected news. Aliens wanting to join us? Not exactly join us, but they want protection from the Void Collective. It seems our resistance has inspired more than just rebellion. Some aliens are questioning their entire society's approach to conquest. Weapons Officer Tony Hughes, now a lieutenant commander himself, pulled up tactical displays showing the new ship configurations. Sir, the squadron is equipped with the most advanced weapons humanity has ever created, but they're all designed around human psychology rather than pure firepower. Jake studied the displays. Each ship in his squadron had been modified with systems that enhanced human mental abilities. The crews could work together to create interference fields powerful enough to shut down entire fleets. How do we know the aliens haven't developed countermeasures? We don't, Tony admitted. But our advantage has never been purely technological, it's been psychological. We think differently than they do. Communications Officer Ben Parker, still at his original rank but now wearing medals for valor, received an incoming transmission. Captain, priority message from the frontier. The collective fleet has been spotted 3 systems away from the outer colonies. Jake felt the familiar tightness in his stomach that came before battle. Time to intercept? 18 hours if we leave immediately. Jake looked around the conference room at his officers. They were all veterans now, hardened by combat and united by their shared experience of surviving the impossible. All right, people, we know what we're up against. 500 enemy ships against our 12. Any sane military commander would call this suicide. Commander Alex Turner smiled. Good thing we're not sane, sir. Exactly. We're human. That makes us dangerous in ways the enemy still doesn't understand. The Defiant Squadron departed Earth orbit 6 hours later. As they entered hyperspace, Jake stood on his bridge and thought about how much had changed since that desperate battle 6 months ago. Humanity was no longer retreating. Human ships throughout the galaxy were taking offensive actions against the Void Collective. The aliens who had seemed unstoppable were now fighting for their lives on multiple fronts. But Jake knew the upcoming battle would be the most important yet. If the Defiant Squadron could stop or even significantly delay the massive enemy fleet, it would give humanity time to complete the evacuation of the outer colonies and prepare better defenses. If they failed, millions of human civilians would die. Captain, the ship's AI Liberty spoke from the bridge speakers. I have been analyzing Void Collective tactical data. I believe I understand their new strategy. Tell me. They have decided that humans cannot be conquered through conventional warfare. Their new approach is total annihilation. They intend to destroy every human world rather than trying to subjugate the population. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How certain are you about this? 97% certainty based on fleet composition analysis. The approaching force includes planet-killing weapons that they have never used against other species. This changed everything. The Void Collective wasn't trying to conquer humanity anymore. They were trying to exterminate them completely. Ben, send an encrypted transmission to Admiral Sullivan. Tell her about this intelligence. Transmission. Sent, sir. Jake looked out at the stars rushing past as the Defiant Squadron traveled toward their destiny. In 18 hours, they would face the largest enemy fleet ever assembled. The odds were more impossible than ever, but Jake Morrison and the crew of the USS Defiance had never been deterred by impossible odds. They had learned something that the Void Collective still didn't understand. Sometimes the most powerful weapon in the universe wasn't technology or numbers or even superior firepower. Sometimes the most powerful weapon was the simple human refusal to give up. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "In 18 hours, we're going to face the biggest enemy fleet in history. They're not trying to conquer us anymore. They're trying to wipe humanity from existence." He paused, looking around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Each one showed the same determined expression that had carried them through their first impossible battle. "But I want you all to remember something. We've beaten impossible odds before. We'll do it again. Because we're human, and humans don't know when to quit." The USS Defiance and her squadron raced toward their appointment with destiny, carrying with them the hopes and dreams of an entire species. The Void Collective fleet stretched across space like a dark wall of death. 500 ships, each one capable of cracking a planet in half, arranged in perfect formation. At the center of the fleet hung the largest vessel humanity had ever encountered, a world killer that dwarfed even the capital ships from the previous battle. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, studying the tactical display with grim determination. His small squadron of 12 ships looked pathetically tiny compared to the enemy armada. "Range to target?" Jake asked. 200,000 kilometers in closing, Navigation Officer Ryan Clark responded. "Sir, they've detected us. The entire enemy fleet is changing course to intercept." Jake had expected this. There was no way to surprise a fleet that large, and no point in trying to hide. The Defiant Squadron was here to fight, and everyone knew it. "Ben, open a channel to the squadron," Jake ordered. "Channel open, sir. All ships, this is Morrison, remember. Our job isn't to win this battle. Our job is to prove that humanity can't be intimidated, no matter what they throw at us. Make every shot count." Commander Alex Turner worked at his tactical station coordinating the squadron's weapons. "Sir, the new neural interface systems are online. All crews are ready to project interference fields." The enemy fleet opened fire at maximum range, filling space with deadly energy. The Defiant Squadron scattered, using evasive maneuvers that no computer could predict. Human pilots flew on instinct and emotion, making split-second decisions. That confused the alien targeting systems. "Direct hit on the Warrior," Communications Officer Ben Parker reported. "They're venting atmosphere but still fighting." Jake watched as one of his ships took critical damage but continued to fire back at the enemy. Captain Roberts and his crew were living up to the example set by the original Defiance battle. "Lisa, give me everything the engines have," Jake called to Chief Engineer Lisa Grant. "You've got maximum power, Captain. But sir, we've got a bigger problem. I'm reading energy signatures from that massive ship in the center of their fleet. It's charging some kind of weapon we've never seen before." Jake studied the tactical display. The World Killer was indeed powering up something enormous. Energy readings were off the scale. "Sarah, what do you make of that weapon?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Williams at her engineering station. "It's not designed to destroy planets, Captain. It's designed to destroy entire star systems. If they fire that thing, it could destabilize the local sun." Jake felt his blood turn to ice. If the Void Collective was willing to destroy a star system just to eliminate one human squadron, it proved they were truly committed to human extinction. "All ships emergency scatter pattern," Jake ordered. "Get as much distance from each other as possible." But the Defiant Squadron wasn't running. Even as they scattered, each ship continued to fire at the enemy fleet. Human weapons, enhanced by neural interfaces, began to disrupt alien systems throughout the massive armada. Dr. Carl Rogers monitored the ship's crew from the medical bay. "Captain, the neural strain on the crew is enormous. They're pushing their abilities beyond anything we've seen before. Can they maintain it?" "I don't know. But sir, the interference field they're generating is unlike anything we've recorded. It's not just disrupting enemy technology. It's actually causing physical damage to their ships. Jake could see it on the tactical display. Enemy vessels throughout the fleet were losing power, drifting out of formation, even exploding as their own weapons overloaded. Tony, target their command ships. Jake ordered Weapons Officer Tony Hughes. If we can disrupt their coordination. Already. On it, Captain. But that world killer is still charging its weapon. Energy output is increasing exponentially. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The 12 ships of the Defiant Squadron fought like demons, using every trick they had learned from previous battles. But the odds were simply too great. One by one, human ships began to fall. The destroyer Phoenix went down fighting, taking 3 enemy vessels with it. The cruiser Valiant sacrificed itself to protect a damaged squadron mate. The frigate Liberty died in a blaze of glory that could be seen from 3 star systems away. "Sir, we're down to 5 ships," Alex Turner reported, his voice strained with exhaustion and grief. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was bleeding, exhausted, and pushed beyond all reasonable limits, but they were still fighting. "Captain, incoming transmission from the enemy world killer," Ben Parker announced. "Let's hear it." The main screen showed an alien unlike any they had encountered before. This being was ancient, its dark skin marked with scars from countless battles. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of eons. "I am Supreme War Leader Thane of the Void Collective. I have conquered 1,000 worlds and exterminated 50 species. You cannot win this battle, human. Surrender now, and I will grant you a quick death." Jake stepped forward, looking directly at the alien commander. Around him, his crew continued to work at their stations, never stopping their fight. "This is Captain Jake Morrison. I've got a counter-proposal. Take your fleet and leave human space. Do that, and we'll let you keep breathing." The ancient alien's face showed something that might have been amusement. "You command 5 damaged ships against my 500. Your weapons are failing, your crews are dying, and you have no hope of survival. Why do you persist in this madness?" Jake smiled, feeling a strange sense of peace descend over him. "Because that's what humans do. We don't know when to quit. We don't know when to give up, and we sure as hell don't know when to surrender. Then you will die for nothing. Maybe. But we'll die as humans. And that's more than you can say." The transmission ended, and Jake turned to his crew one last time. "All right, people. We're down to 5 ships, and they're about to fire a weapon that can destroy a star system. Anyone have any suggestions?" Lieutenant Commander Sarah Williams looked up from her station, her face streaked with sweat and tears. "Captain, there's one thing we haven't tried. What if we focused all our neural interference on their world killer? All 5 remaining crews working together, targeting the same ship. Would it work? I don't know. But it's the only chance we have." Jake nodded. "Ben, open a channel to all remaining squadron ships." "Channel open, sir. All ships, this is Morrison. We're going to try something that's never been done before. I want every crew member on every ship to focus their thoughts on that world killer. Don't think about weapons or tactics or anything else. Just think about home. Think about Earth. Think about everyone you're trying to protect." The response was immediate and dramatic. The 5 remaining ships of the Defiant Squadron suddenly glowed with an eerie light as their crews synchronized their thoughts. The combined neural interference field was visible to the naked eye, rippling through space like heat waves. The effect on the enemy world killer was catastrophic. Systems throughout the massive vessel began failing. The star system-destroying weapon powered down as its control circuits overloaded. Secondary explosions began rippling across the ship's hull. "It's working?" Sarah Williams reported with amazement. "The world killer is losing power, but the effort was taking a terrible toll on the human crews." Jake could see his people collapsing at their stations, blood streaming from their noses as they pushed their abilities beyond all limits. "Sir, the rest of the enemy fleet is in chaos," Alex Turner managed to report. "The neural interference is affecting all their ships." Jake watched as hundreds of alien vessels lost power and drifted helplessly in space. The mighty Void Collective fleet, which had seemed unstoppable just minutes before, was now completely disabled. Supreme War Leader Thane's face appeared on the screen again, but this time his ancient features showed something Jake had never seen in a Void Collective commander before. Fear. "What are you?" Thane demanded. "What manner of beings are you?" Jake looked around his bridge at his dying crew, then back at the alien commander. "We're human, and we've just taught you something important about our species." "What is that?" "We don't know how to lose." The world killer exploded in a flash of light that briefly outshone the local sun. The shockwave destroyed dozens of other alien vessels and sent the rest fleeing in panic. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance as rescue ships arrived to find the 5 remaining vessels of his squadron drifting powerless but victorious among the wreckage of the largest enemy fleet ever assembled. The battle was over. Against impossible odds, a handful of human ships had defeated 500 alien vessels. Word of the victory spread throughout the galaxy within hours, inspiring rebellions on 1,000 worlds and forever changing the balance of power in space. But Jake Morrison never lived to see the full consequences of his final victory. The neural strain of the battle had pushed him and his crew beyond human limits. As he collapsed on his bridge, his last thought was of Earth, safe once again because a few humans had refused to accept defeat. Years later, when humanity had grown into a galactic power and the Void Collective was nothing but a memory, children would learn about the USS Defiance and its crew. They would learn that sometimes the difference between victory and defeat wasn't technology or numbers or superior firepower. Sometimes the difference was simply the human refusal to give up. No,